Hello folks, and welcome to the fourth StarGateVR tutorial video. In this installment, we're going to talk about how to change your coordinate frames. So, in a lot of cases with astronomical data, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in the positional frame, but you might also want to utilize some other tools like the classic color magnitude diagram or checking out where your stars lie in a velocity UVW space, among whatever else you can imagine pulling from the Gaia query system. So there are two primary ways of changing your coordinate frames. When you load up a dataset, you'll notice it's in the XYZ frame. So this is positional in parsecs. You can use your little tools to figure out how many parsecs away a star is. It's based on the Gaia positional data. However, you may want to toggle the different frames quickly. And so there's three coordinate frame presets. This may change in future updates, but at present there's three. There's an XYZ button, a UVW button, and an HR button. So the XYZ button takes you to the XYZ space, plots your stars positionally, as expected. The UVW does the same for the velocity space, so if you just point your right hand pointer at that button and you depress the trigger, you'll toggle over to the velocity coordinate frame, so now you're in a kilometers per second UVW velocity coordinate axes. And then the final preset button is this HR diagram. It's really a color magnitude diagram for Gaia, but it's typically known as the Hertzsprung-Russell. So if you click on that, you'll notice you get a two-dimensional plot where one axis is your color magnitude and then the other axis is your absolute magnitude. So that's a useful tool for a lot of things relating to stellar evolution. And those are the big three presets here. It may be the case in the future that these are changeable. You might be able to add your own, but that's far off. Right now, you just have these three presets to work with. If you decide that those aren't enough or that you'd like to get some more specific information, like let's say, for example, you want a three-dimensional Hertzsprung-Russell diagram. The other option for you is to manually set each axis. So above the coordinate frame presets on the controller panel, on the left-hand controller, you'll see there's an x-axis, a y-axis, and a z-axis menu. So what you do is you point your controller. So we have a color magnitude diagram right now that already has the B minus R color and the reverse absolute magnitude plotted. So let's say I want to add a third dimension, an x-axis to this. I'll take my right-hand controller, I'll point it at that drop-down menu, click the trigger, and then another list will come up of all the possible parameters that I could set that axis to. And there's a drop-down menu, there's like a slider here. So to see all of them, you want to click on that slider like you do with the scaling bar and drag it down. So posit that I want a color magnitude diagram, and I also want to see something goofy, like let's say the radial velocity. So we'll have a BP minus RP, absolute magnitude, and a radial velocity diagram. So I'll point at that radial velocity thing. It's highlighted gray. I'll click the trigger again. And there you have it. So now on our x-axis, this red one out here, in addition to a color magnitude diagram, we also have a third axis that is radial velocity. And there's nothing too exciting to see there, but you can imagine something like metallicity being more interesting here. We can try that quickly. So there you go. So you could have some metallicity gradient on the color magnitude diagram. You can do this for all three axes. So let's say XYZ is fine, but you're more familiar with the traditional right ascension, declination, distance box for your stars. So I've changed the x-axis to right ascension. I'm changing the y-axis to declination. And I'm now changing the z-axis to distance. So there's some coordinate funk going on here, but what you're essentially seeing now is that same XYZ dataset plotted in right ascension, declination, and distance. So there you have it. That's how you manipulate the coordinate systems in the StarGateVR tool. You may either use this coordinate frame presets for the basic XYZ, UVW, and color magnitude diagram buttons, or you can utilize these drop-down lists to fully customize each axis. Thank you, and I will see you in the next video.